Hello humans, it is Mr. Bell with sketchbook activity number 8. If you were in drawing and painting with me before, you've already done 1 through 7, and now we're moving on to 8. If you are new to the class and you've transferred in with the hybrid model stuff, you do not need to go back and do 1 through 7, but you need to start with number 8. This will help me with grading stuff, okay? And then I do also, after you write that number 8, write the date, which today is going to be October 1st, the first day back of hybrid school. Then I'm going to name this assignment, and this assignment is going to be called Sausage Fingers. So I'm going to write Sausage Fingers right here, S-A-U-S-A-G-E, sausage, and then fingers, F-I-N-G-E-R-S, sausage fingers. So now it's labeled and we're good to go. So what I want you to do first is I want you to get in your time machine, and I want you to travel back to when you were in, say, 1st grade. And I want you to do a tracing of your hand, all Thanksgiving turkey hand. You know how you would trace your hand and then draw a turkey beak on it, and then these were his feathers. But for this time, I want you to, think if this is a more useful tool and not just a gimmick on how to make a turkey. I want you to flip your hand over. And I want you to be palm up, placing your fingers kind of flat on the page in a way that's not crazy. I don't want to make my fingers in any shapes or anything. I just want it to be a regular old hand laying flat on the page. When I trace this, also, I want to be aware to push my pencil into the crack here between my finger and the paper itself. So I kind of want to get these fingers to actually be about as fat as your fingers are as you do this. If you're wearing a ring or something like that, you want to take that ring off for this assignment, and then you can put it right back on when you're done tracing your hand. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Again, pushing my finger or my pencil in towards where the paper is, trying to keep these shapes the same width as my actual fingers. So I'm going to start here at the bottom of the page in my wrist. I want to include my wrist in this because your wrist is very much part of your hand. And it's also where your arm begins. So it'll be a good way to kind of connect these two parts of the body. Tracing my fingers as good as I can. Remember, this isn't going to look super accurate. It's going to look like a hand, right? But it's not going to look like it's the real shape of a hand necessarily. It's going to be a guide to how that hand is actually shaped. I'm going to trace it all the way down and go all the way there. And voila, I have a pretty good facsimile in my thumb. You know, obviously my thumb is much thicker here. So I am going to go ahead and just draw in a little extra guideline for that web between my fingers. I am going to erase this too. Okay, so now you have your hand traced. Go ahead and put your rings back on if you wish. I'm going to start with the thumb because the thumb is a little bit simpler. But I want you to think about this shape. That's why it's called sausage fingers, is we're going to flesh this hand out with shapes that are very similar to this, right? An oval, not a perfect oval necessarily, but kind of an elongated oval, or kind of almost an ellipse or an egg shaped. Again, I'm going to flesh out my thumb first. I'm going to hold my hand here so I can see it, and then I'm going to look at my thumb and I'm going to move it, and I'm going to recognize that, you see those creases on your hand. Those creases exist because that's where your thumb bends all the time. So those are just like friction wrinkles that happen as you move your hands. And everybody has them, and they're also really good lines to kind of divide where the parts of the thumb are. So I'm going to start with this right here on my thumb, the tip. This is where my first sausage is going to be, and then this is where the second sausage of my finger will be. So I'm going to kind of gauge as I look at this. I think that my sausage finger probably comes to right around schmear. So remember, it's not like a perfect oval, and I'm going over it a little bit again just to kind of make sure I get those lines exactly where I want them. If I was going to draw a realistic hand this way, I could just do this as like a scaffold or a skeleton to how to build the hand, and then I would erase all these lines as I shadowed it and stuff. I'm going to go ahead and draw my second sausage finger right here, and it comes down to you look at your thumb wrinkle right there, it actually comes down to right around here. But I wanted this to be kind of represent the knuckle, not the part that the wrinkles into the hand. So I'm going to draw this one right around here, because I think that's where the knuckle would end. Notice overlap a little bit, and that's okay. You don't want to overlap. You really want them to be kind of right next to each other. but overlapping is a little bit okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. So now I want you to notice that these two ovals are approximately, again, not perfect, but approximately the exact same size. That is because really this bone in your thumb and this bone in your thumb really are almost exactly the same length. It's how the body proportions itself. Your body parts are almost always have a relationship to your other body parts in that they're about the same length. Like if you go like this is actually the same length almost exactly as your hand. Notice that it creates a triangle. So these are about the same size, and that's going to be the same way through all of these fingers because they all have that same relationship. Just because this has 2, these have 3. But you can flesh it out the same way. I'm going to start this one. I'm going to my first oval here. This is going to be where my first sausage is, and then third and fourth. Or first, second, third, sorry. And I notice like this wrinkle's right around there. I think this knuckle bends, you know, right around here. So I'm going to draw my first sausage there. It's going to be around here. And you know, I draw lines a little sketchy like this. It's okay if you don't draw that way. Everybody has their own way of drawing those lines. Sometimes I will employ this technique that we've been going over, but for these are all pretty small details, so I'm going to pretty much stick with this. Drawing my second sausage finger. And then I'm going to draw my third. Again, these are all approximately the same exact length. Okay, it's really easy to fall into the trick when you're drawing hands or when you're drawing arms or legs to make one part longer. Oftentimes people will make this part of the hand longer than this part, and it'll really kind of the proportions will be off. So the viewer will be able to say, hey, that's not accurate looking. So that's where that realism dies. I'm gonna do the same thing quickly with these remaining fingers, but I hope you kind of get the gist. Sketch this guy out. I'm gonna do this guy. So notice it gets a little fatter towards the hand, and then as it goes up, it does get a little skinnier. But lengthwise, it basically stays the same. I'm gonna do this guy. Bam. And then as you get to the tip of the finger, you're like, hey, that doesn't seem like it's enough space to fit the same shape as this and this, but it really almost always is in cases of human hands. They're almost always the same exact length. Last one, and then we're going to do the palm, and then that's it. And then, so now that you have your fingers fleshed out, awesome. That's kind of the harder part of this. But I want you to take a second and I want you to look at your palm. And then I want you to wiggle it. And I want you to notice that as you wiggle it, it kind of forms these shapes. And these shapes are usually divided by where these wrinkles, like what are called your love lines on your hands or your lifeline. I think this is your lifeline. I don't know. Anyways, we almost all have these 3 lines. You have this one that is the wrinkle that's caused from moving your thumb. You have this one in the middle, which is caused from moving the middle, like bending your fingers at this knuckle. And then you have this one up here, which is from taking your pinky and clasping it to your thumb, like movements we all do with our hands. But they're really good divider lines for how these ovals within your hand work. So I'm going to start with this one by the fingers. This one is not, it's not long like this way, but it's going to stretch across the whole thing, all 4 of these knuckles where they actually touch the palm of your hand. So I'm going to represent that. I think it'll come right around that area. So I'm going to do the same thing on my page. I'm going to sketch this bad boy out. And then I'm going to kind of build it back in to itself on the other side. You know, you want to avoid that football shape. It's more of you want long edges on it, but a little football shape is okay. So then I think that's going to represent where this shape is. Now I want you to bend your thumb and think about this shape. How do you represent that on the palm? Remember, you want it to touch all the way here because that's how it's connected internally with your bones. And you want this shape to kind of go up to all the way here. If you look here, this is kind of this line. Now I want to take this shape and I want to get it all the way over in here. So it connects them together. It kind of represents its own shape. And then the other half is kind of over here, and this one's usually a little bit longer. like so. And then there's maybe another one over here. And then this is where like the arm oval would work. So if I was going to continue drawing this, this would be quite long, and all the way down to where my arm would work, which is usually almost exactly the same length from your wrist to your the end of your middle finger is actually almost the exact same length that your middle finger types on your forearm. And it's the same with your upper arm too. So the length of your hand is almost, like if you go all the way to the top of your wrist, is almost exactly the same length as your forearm, which is almost the exact same length as your upper arm, which works the same way with feet and hands, or with feet and legs, that is. So this is all you really need to do. I'm going to leave you with this. I'm going to let you have the rest of the class to work on this. But again, trace your hands carefully and then flesh them out with those shapes, those ovals, those sausage fingers that you see within the bending parts of your hands.